Here.
Dr. Martin? Here. Dr. Murillo?
Here.
Dr. Pollock?
Here.
Miss Robinson?
Present.
Miss C? Here. Miss Wenma. I'm sorry, Miss. No, I said it
Here.
right. Miss Wenma. Oh my gosh.
Got it.
Okay.
Mary Jo, what did you do?
I don't know. Man.
So normally we would proceed to Pledge of Allegiance. Today we're going to head down to the Commons area for several celebrations, recognitions. We're also going to do the pledge down there and quite a few other things. For those of you watching at home or remotely, these celebration recognitions will be on the SD308 Facebook Live or Facebook page, live streamed and then held there for posterity. So let's all head downstairs.
Sorry, Mary Jo. It just looks different. Oh, I know. I didn't print it off. Do you want a bigger copy for you? I did print it off.
Rolling's did it. Yeah. My
That's not just. Well, I'm gonna get there.
Hello. Right.
It'll be okay.
Are we back?
We're back whenever.
Okay. For those watching at home, we'll be starting in a few minutes here.
Sorry. Yes. So it is wrong.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna start back up.
Okay.
All right. Well, that was exciting. That was a nice room full of people and great presentations. Well, we're moving on though. We're at action item 5.1. Approval of building administrator contract. May I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the building administrator contracts as discussed and presented.
Second.
Oh, any discussion? No? Okay, thank you.
Ms. Winmuth?
Aye.
Ms. C?
Aye.
Dr. Polak?
Aye.
Mr. Saron?
Aye.
Dr. Murillo?
Aye.
Ms. Robinson?
Aye.
Dr. Martin?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. And then we're moving on to 6.1.
Before we go there,
Oh.
Doc,
Okay.
I'd like to give an opportunity, Mr. President, to invite Dr. Mitchell to really congratulate and celebrate our new hires. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Mitchell.
Thank you, thank you. Good evening, President Cerrone, Vice President Martin, members of the Board of Education, and Superintendent Dr. Kilgotti. I'm excited to share 5 building administrators. Is that an echo? Sorry.
It's like a buzz.
Okay. I'm excited to share. I'm excited to share. Okay. 5 building administrators for your approval this evening. The candidate recommended for Assistant Principal of Special Education at Murphy Junior High School is Jackie Hansen. Jackie currently serves as principal of Parkland Preparatory Academy. She brings extensive experience in crisis management, behavioral support, and systems level leadership. Her background demonstrates a strong commitment to supporting students with disabilities, empowering staff, and ensuring high quality special education programming. Please join me in welcoming Jackie to SD308. Next, the candidate recommended for assistant principal at Trauber Junior High School is Nicole Harder. Nicole is both an educator and a parent of Oswego community. Nicole brings several unique attributes to the AP role, including a calm demeanor, willingness to listen and communicate openly. Her instructional skills are outstanding, and she strives to meet the needs of all students. Please join me in welcoming Nicole on her new role. The candidate recommended for the special education assistant principal at Thompson Junior High is Caitlin Papineau. All right, Caitlin has 10 years experience working in a special education setting, with the bulk of her experience coming from a therapeutic day school. She has supported students from pre-K through 22 and worked with students with varying abilities. Her leadership experience includes working as a curriculum coordinator, assistant principal, IEP trainer, and instructional coach. Please join me in welcoming Caitlin to SD308. Although unable to join us this evening, the candidate recommended for assistant principal of Wolf's Crossing Elementary School is Heather Pick. Heather brings a strong combination of instructional leadership, relationship building, and elementary school experience that aligns well with the needs of Wolf's Crossing. Her work as a continuous improvement coach and coordinator for the past 3 years demonstrates her ability to support teachers. Congratulations, Heather. And last but certainly not least, the candidate recommended for special education assistant principal at Homestead Elementary School is Emily Redlick. Emily began her career as a special education teacher. Throughout her career, she has collaborated with diverse schools programs, consistently prioritizing student-centered decision-making. For the past 2 years, Emily has served as an elementary assistant principal. Her strong communication skills, adaptability, and extensive knowledge of special education make her an ideal candidate. Please join me in welcoming Emily to SD308. That concludes my report.
Thank you to everybody for joining us in SC308. Thank you. 6.1, our possible bond referendum proposal, public opinion survey results.
Good evening, board. As you know, we have been evaluating as part of our work with the White & Company, our long-range facility plan, and then really begun the process of identifying the best way in which to support these both preventative capital improvement needs, as well as what I would say emergent, if not emergency ones that may come up as a result of our work coming to the end of its life. I mean, our facilities and some of the materials coming to the end of their life in terms of whether it's HVAC systems or other utilities. And so with that, we've invited this evening Paul Henley to come speak about really some of the results of some initial trying to understand our community in preparation for the possibility of bringing a referendum proposal in August to the board to consider as a way to identify a proactive manner to address the needs, the financial needs. And last month, if you would remember, board, we had Bob Lewis here, and if you did not have a chance to hear the results of that presentation, I would welcome anybody watching to turn to that. It was very fruitful in terms of understanding how the funds are raised and the way in which we prepare for this. And with that, I'll turn it over to Paul Henley. Oh, almost, not yet. Try now, or just tap it.
Nope,
No, not yet.
you got help coming.
Is that good?
Yep.
Great. So again, my name is Paul Hanley, Managing Director of Beyond Your Base. I've spent the last 34 years trying to figure out what taxpayers want and whether it aligns with what the public entity is trying to do. I calculated last week on a flight where I was headed to go visit another client that I've spent more than 70% of my adult life trying to allow taxpayers to have a voice. And so tonight, before I dive into the data specific to the survey, I want to mention just some of the things that happened prior to the community being surveyed. So the district prepared a strategic plan, a facilities condition assessment was done, an educational assessment was done, a long-range facilities plan was completed, a financing plan was completed. And that's when you came to my team and said, Paul, can you assist us in sharing this information with the community and then testing it with regard to a public opinion research survey. So as part of the engagement efforts with the community, the first thing we did was to put together a 38-member citizen task force of business leaders, civic leaders, faith-based leaders, parents, non-parents, seniors, senior advocates, and others, and ask them the question, what should the district share and test with regard to a possible bond referendum? So that happened prior to us actually sharing anything. And so that information was taken by the board, which then said, yes, we agree with your recommendation with regard to what to share and test. So as far as sharing, the district then went out and made presentations, did public information meetings. They had an informational mailer. There's a special landing page on the website. It has a detailed FAQ, meeting dates, etc. There was earned media and other public outreach efforts. And then lastly, and why I'm here tonight, is that a mail online survey was conducted. And so in the olden days, you could do what was called a scientific phone poll. So you did a random stratified sample of 300 people. Back then, people would actually answer their phone. They had landlines. And you could get quite quickly a random stratified sample of 300 to do the survey, complete the survey, and you'd have a margin of error of about 5.66%. And these days, it takes at least 35,000 likely voters to complete a phone survey like that. And so for years, we've always done a mail survey, sometimes in combination with the phone survey, but have always done this mail survey instrument. And we've put it on steroids in recent years. And on that survey, it's not just a snail mail survey, but it has a QR code. And so if they want to take the survey online, also have the opportunity to take it in Spanish if they like. And then the other thing that happened is approximately 10 days after the survey hits the mailboxes, we sent out a text message to those registered voters we've identified with a cell phone number. And that text message said something like, you should have recently received a survey in the mail. If you have not yet completed it, would greatly appreciate your participation. Below is a link. And so we've kind of hit them on 3 different opportunities to participate: snail mail, QR code, text message. So let me now dive into the results of the survey. So there's what the survey instrument looked like. With that snail mail survey was a fact sheet for those who had not received the previous mailer, read the previous mailer, come to your meetings, etc. There was a reply envelope. There are 2 different types of reply envelopes. So based on historical voting records, we can figure out who is a likely voter for November of 2026. And so those who had a likely voter in the household received a reply envelope that had a dot on it. And those who did not have a likely voter received an reply envelope that did not have a dot on it. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So this was mailed to 26,157 registered voter households on May 26th. As mentioned, had the opportunity to participate via the QR code if they liked. And then shortly after that, on June 15th, we sent out 34,013 text messages. And on June 25th, we sent that out again. We received 2,584 survey responses for a response rate of 10%. We usually get between 8 and 17%. To get to a 10% response rate, given the size of your district, is a lot. So 49% completed the survey via the snail mail, 16% the QR code, 35% participated via the link to the online survey through the text message. So one of the questions, we had a number of demographic questions. What is your gender? If you look to the bottom left, it says November 2026 likely voters. Based on historical voting records, we can predict who's going to show up to vote for any particular election. In this case, we think that this November, there'll be 46% male, 54% female. So when we look at the pie chart of who actually responded, we have 48% female, 34% male, 9% preferring not to answer. We had 6% who selected both male and female, since they're working typically as a couple, and then 3% did not respond. So what we're seeing here is just a slight overrepresentation of females in the survey. Then we asked about age, and you can see the middle column are again, percentage breakdown of likely voters for November of 2026. On the right-hand side are those who actually participated. So on the first line, you have 18 to 34-year-olds. We think that this fall there will be 13% of those who vote will be 18 to 34, whereas in the survey, we had 4%. And you can kind of see through the color coding as we go down where we have a slight underrepresentation or a slight overrepresentation. And know that when I present the results at the end with regard to support level, I'll also talk about how we took some of this data and weighted it to dial in the estimated support level. Again, on the bottom left, we have data that indicates that those who will vote in November 2026, 43% do not have a school-age child, whereas 50% have a school-age child in the home, 7% unknown. When I first looked at this data a year ago, we were about 46% school-age child in the home, or now 50%. You have a community of a lot of parents who have school-age kids, because it's not that common to see a number that high, 50%. Oftentimes you'll see 35%, maybe 38%, but not 50%. However, when you look at those who participate in the survey, we have 36%, yes, they have a school-age child, 61% did not. So again, when we get to the results, I'll mention how we weighted this so that we would have a higher representation of parents than otherwise participated. We asked them, if you do have a school-age kid, in what grade are they in, or what of these schools? So 1% early learning, 13% elementary, 11% junior high, 17% high school, less than 1% goal Eastview pathways, 2% other. As far as awareness of the proposal, so prior to receiving the survey, how much had you read, seen, or heard about the school district's proposed bond referendum? We're at 12% a lot, 48% some, 20% hardly anything, 19% nothing at all. We want the some and a lot to be about 70%, typically what we see with regard to successful referenda. I think there's opportunity here to further inform the electorate with regard to this proposal. Grade the district. So if you just gave me one slide out of this deck, I could have a very good sense as to whether or not you had a chance or not. So there is a strong positive correlation between an A and a B vote and a yes vote, and a very strong positive correlation as well with a C, D, or F grade with a no vote. And so what we're seeing here are okay grades. They're not super strong. And so again, it's one of the first things I look at when I get the data back. Then we ask grade the district's facilities. And again, we're seeing kind of similar results. So we have 47% A and B, 47% A and B. We had 39% CDF, 34% CDF. So it's very similar to just the general grade the district. Usually you see lower scores with regard to facilities relative to the grading of the district. Would you say schools in SD308 are better than, about the same as, or not as good as schools in neighboring school districts? So we have 17% better than, 46% about the same, 21% not as good, 14% don't know. Again, you get these large don't know percentages because there's folks out there who don't have a school-age kid. They're not familiar with the district. So rather than asking a voter right away, yes or no on a proposal, we test parts of the package. And so we did this on a Likert scale. So at the top, what priority should be given to funding the following proposed district-wide facility and site improvements? Please rate each project using a scale of 1 low priority, 5 high priority. And as you look at the columns, again, on the far left is low priority, and to the right is 5 high priority, and then to the very far right is what we call net favorability. So we're adding the 4s and 5s and subtracting out the 1s and 2s, and then we order these based on highest percentage to lowest percentage. So what does it mean? It means, well, what priority are voters, taxpayers placing on various possible parts of the proposal? And at the top are safety and security upgrades. Net favorability, 54%. It's a really high number. Second, replacing outdated and inefficient mechanical, electrical, plumbing, HVAC. Many of our clients are often surprised that basic infrastructure pulls so well. And we're not surprised after doing this for 34 years, because voters want to protect what they already own. They kind of understand the concept of plumbing, electrical, roofing, etc., the basics. And that gets almost as high a net favorability as safety and security. Next is repairing and replacing roof, masonry, windows, so kind of exterior improvements, still a fairly decent high number. CTE, classrooms, We're still at, in what I start to look at is that 5 column versus the 1 column. So high priority versus low priority. And is there at any point when low priority is higher than high priority? And so, again, we have science labs still in the positive, sensory intervention, resource spaces in the positive, aging flooring, lighting, doors, locks in the positive. But then we get to repurposing junior high school computer labs and creating collaboration spaces. We get a -18 net favorability. And then lastly, improving athletic fields with turf surfaces at both high schools gets a -38%. I told you 2 months ago or 3 months ago that turf doesn't pull well. Doesn't mean you can't do it, but I was telling you it would not pull well. And it never does. No matter how vocal certain segments of your electorate are with regard to the importance of turf, it just every time we pull it, it doesn't pull well. So then another part of the survey is to test arguments for and against the proposal, trying to get a sense of, do folks truly understand what the various issues are with regard to this, both in terms of favorable things and unfavorable things. And we didn't hold back on arguments against. Like, we didn't have softballs on arguments against, which you'll see in a minute. So, question, how convincing do you find each statement supporting the possible bond referendum? Please rate each statement on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 is not at all convincing. 5 is very convincing. And on these, I'll use baseball terms. So if we look at the very convincing 5 column, 20s are like a single, 30s are a double, 40s are a triple, 50s are a home run. There are times when we get into the 50s, but it didn't happen here on arguments in favor. So the top argument in favor, addressing improvements that result in healthier, safer, and more secure schools is a fair and reasonable investment. We get a double. Many major building systems are reaching the end of their useful life. At the same time, a planned, systematic approach to replacing them is important. Almost a double, still it's a single. Almost 80% of the proposed improvements are tied to infrastructure upgrades. Again, a single. We kind of go down the list of all these various arguments in favor, all kind of a single.
Did you know we had a Kansas City Royal
Yeah, exactly. It
draft
was
tonight?
amazing.
Is
We
this
love
the
that.
theme?
Yeah, we'll go with the baseball theme. That was super exciting. And then as far as arguments opposing, now all of a sudden we have a triple at the top. The improvements should focus solely on infrastructure needs and not on upgrades like turf fields at the high school. 44%. The district should reduce the scope of the proposed improvements to decrease the debt service tax rate even more. Now that's a single. Now is not the right time to ask taxpayers to approve additional debt, even if the existing debt service tax rate can be lowered. Double. District should not ask for more funding. Instead, limited repairs should be made over time, accepting that some facility needs may go unmet. Single. Many homeowners do not have school-aged children and should not have to continue funding school building improvements. Single. And then kind of striking out as any additional voter-approved funding should be focused on instruction and curriculum and not on facility improvements. They were not in support of that. Okay, so we have a bunch of surveys in the field, and we ask it just like we do in other districts. And while we've asked it slightly different in your district than in other districts we see an actual tax rate increase. In your district, we have the opportunity to have a net tax rate reduction in terms of the debt service tax rate. And so it was asked differently. So here's how we placed it. Would you be more likely or less likely to support SD308's proposed 25-year, $317 million bond referendum, knowing that the financing plan would provide annual savings in property taxes of approximately $100 in 2028 and an additional $56 in 2036 for a home with a fair market value of $335,000? So we get 23%. Much more likely, 25% somewhat more likely, 29% makes no difference, 6% somewhat less likely, 15% much less likely. And so this comes into play as we get further into the data. So then we ask the ballot question, and some pollsters do like summaries of ballot questions. They don't ask the actual ballot question. We ask the actual ballot question. This is what a taxpayer would likely see on the ballot if this was placed on the ballot. And so, you know, it's kind of an ugly long paragraph, but it is what they would, it's what they would see. And so we get 50% yes, 42% no, 6% don't know, and 1% no response. I often say that don't know is a politically correct way of saying no. But don't knows are oftentimes leaning to a no. And the other thing is we don't just ask yes or no. We ask, is that definitely yes, probably no, definitely no? We do that so we can figure out the intensity of the yes vote. And here we're seeing that the intensity favors the no vote. So we have 27% definitely no versus 22% definitely yes. We want the definitely yes to be 30% or higher. We want the definitely no to be kind of max 20%. And we're not seeing that. And we're seeing this kind of large soft yes and soft no. So we see that, or rather a large soft yes, 28% probably yes. So we need to think about that as we, again, think about whether you have a chance or not at the polls. Go back to this. So I mentioned that we went back and looked at the data and weighted things based on underrepresentation of parents. There weren't enough parents that filled out the survey, and then age was skewing older. And so we had to factor that in. So when you do that, we're at about 52% support as a result of that. So then the other thing I mentioned that there was an envelope that had a dot on it. We didn't know who returned it, but we knew that somebody in that home was a likely voter if they had a dot on the reply envelope. So those who completed the survey via the snail mail method and it had a dot on the reply envelope, there were 1,180 of those, and we were at 47% support. There were 93 that didn't have the dot, and we're at 52% support. And what we see here, the reason that you're at 47% support for that likely voter who filled out the snail mail is those who complete the snail mail skew older. We looked at that data. So remember the tax sensitivity question in this case, to what extent the tax would go down. Those who heard that, well, okay, the tax is going to go down, and they were totally more likely to support the measure, we're at 80% support for those who said, yeah, okay, that makes sense. I understand that the tax would go down. And so there's this really strong support level. Those that indicated makes no difference, they're at 35% support. And those who heard that the tax would go down and said they were less likely to support it, as a result, we're at 6% yes.
Is this this slide in particular, are these likely voters, or are these the whole? This is the whole. Group?
This is the whole. This is the whole group. Yeah.
If you go back one slide, is that slide where it says likely, unlikely? That is likely to support and unlikely to support, or that's
nope.
likely voter.
Yep. So again,
voter.
If we just, it's those who completed the mail survey, so they literally fill it out and mailed it back. We know for sure who is a likely voter versus an unlikely voter for November of 2026 based on these envelopes. Now, were there other voters who participated in this above and beyond the 1,180 who are likely to vote? Yes, but they completed it online via the QR code or the text message. And we used to ask them, hey, how likely are you to vote in the upcoming election? And almost all would say, oh yeah, well, we're going to vote for sure. And we know from our data that that was not true. And so we just stopped asking it. But we know for sure that those who completed the survey via the snail mail with a dot on the reply envelope are a likely voter household. So, which is common. Females are more supportive than males with regard to tax-related referenda, especially for education. We're at 60% female yes vote, 48% male yes. If more than one person completed the survey where they're checking male, female, all of a sudden we're at 50% support. And the reason that it's usually it's actually lower than this. And it's because when would be a couple completing the survey typically. When couples work together and they think about tax-related referenda issues or their finances, they actually oftentimes err on the side of being more conservative. So I was actually surprised we got to 50% with this group. Do they have a school-age child? 61% support of those who do. No school-age child, 46% support. And now we look at support across age. Again, the gray bars are those in support. The orangey bars are those against. Pretty common for those 18 to 34, 35 to 44, 45 to 54 to be supportive, which you see they are. 55 to 64-year-old voters are never in support of any tax-related referenda other than maybe fire districts. And why is it? Well, they're trying to retire. And when it comes to education, many of them have kids who are no longer in the district. Maybe they're going to college, et cetera. And so it's really they're very budget concerned, tax sensitive group that is rarely ever reaching 50% support. However, usually that 65 to 74-year-old group and definitely the 75 plus group, you start to see support level. We call it the grandparent effect. I'm just not seeing it here. So we do a lot of work in a variety of school districts where we do see this grandparent effect, and we see the 65 to 74-year-olds actually reaching above 50%, and then the 70% support, 75 and older support level is actually higher than what you're seeing here. Then we look at if they had a school-age child and they indicated what grade, what school they go to or what grade level. We can see that the only one that dips below 50% are those with a child in the early learning center. I think what we call the N value, the number of people that actually completed the survey, was limited for those who have a kid in early learning, but those are the results. So in summary, you're at 50% support across all those who participated. When we look at just those who completed the mail survey and had the dot on the envelope, we're at 47% yes. Intensity favors the opposition. Females are more supportive than males. Voters 18 to 54, as well as those 75 and older, above 50% support. Those 55 to 74 are below 50% support. There's modest support from parents of school-age children. I mentioned that was at 61%. It should be at 70. There's moderate awareness. I think there's room to further educate the voter. District gets average marks. Facilities get average marks. And when we look at what priority they place on parts of the package, it's broken into 3 tiers. Top tier is safety and security, infrastructure, exterior improvements. Middle tier is CTE, updating high school science labs, improving sensory intervention resource spaces, replacing aging flooring, lighting, doors, locks, etc., interior improvements. And then the bottom tier is creating these collaboration spaces, and then improvements to athletic fields. Strongest arguments in favor, those tied to health, safety, security, a planned systematic approach to the replacement of building systems, protecting existing public assets. And then the strongest argument against is the improvements should focus strictly on infrastructure and not on improvements like turf fields. So what's the bottom line? Based on 34 years of doing this, I think 1, you should consider options for reducing the size of the referendum. 2, you should seek further opportunities to communicate the proposal. And then 3, further refine messaging associated with the financing plan given the following results. So we're looking for 56 to 58% support. You're currently at 50%. Support from parents is modest. It's at 61%. It should be about 70% if you want to have a fighting chance of this passing. There is moderate awareness of the proposal. So I think there's opportunities for you to further educate the voter. And then those who have a favorable opinion of the proposed financing plan, which includes a reduction in the current debt service tax rate as existing referenda debt is paid off, are much more supportive at 80% yes. So it's important for the district, if they do further try to educate the voter, is to make sure that people understand this financing plan. Because, you know, we've spent a lot of time thinking about what's involved in that financing plan. And yes, there are a lot of moving parts, but it's really the concept that you have existing debt as a result of previous bond issue that you did, long-term, just like a mortgage, a long-term financing. And each year, some of that debt is being paid off. And that's resulting in a lowering of the tax rate associated with that debt. And at the same time, these new bonds that you would issue if voters approved it, they have a tax rate associated with it. And when you look at that tax rate relative to the tax rate associated with the debt rolling off, there are points 2 years from now where you actually have a tax savings. And then 2 years later, you have an even further tax savings. Well, it just took me 30 seconds to try to explain that, right? There's just a lot of moving parts. So we got to figure out how do you educate the voter about that and make sure that everybody understands what that means. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
So do you have any specific, first of all, thank you very much for that. Do you have specifics off the top of your head of what you would consider dropping from the proposal, aside from turf fields? I mean, turf fields would be number one.
I mean, your challenge is that most of your improvements are tied to infrastructure.
Yeah.
That actually pulls quite well. Same with safety and security. So if you look at safety and security infrastructure, I think we're, 80% of the proposal is already covered by that top tier. And so, you look at the bottom tier, athletic fields, creation of collaboration spaces. I mean, that's the first thing you look at. And then you start looking in that middle tier, do you touch that? And know that, I work with park districts as well. Never get in front of a hockey mom, right? Never get in front of a swim mom. You know what I'm saying? So when we talk about turf fields, you got to be careful, right? That's the challenge here, is that there are a lot of folks that want turf fields, and they're very vocal, and it's tough, right? It's like, what do you do then? So yeah, that's.
One of the
No, I was just going to comment and say, yeah, there's not a lot of standalone items that you could just say, let's not do this, because you're right, it's all part of the infrastructure. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, vast majority is the top tier projects.
Right.
Yeah.
Teresa had a comment about some of the results that I think is very valuable when we think about that percentage of results that we got from June. I think timing is very important. So if you want to say that, and then I want to add a comment.
So we just, as Paul and I were kind of debriefing this a little bit, and we kind of went back to some of those numbers. When you look at the number of the likely voters being significantly higher, a high number of likely voters with children in their household, but yet that response rate, both within that age range of respondents, as well as people that blatantly said they did or did not have kids in the district, showing us that we haven't reached that group yet. And when we talked about like the hardest time of year to get anyone's attention is June and July. So we launched this literally, and that's just where, the timeline fell as far as working backwards from the referendum. But we do feel like that opportunity is there in the data. So we know that there's a percentage that doesn't know enough about it. We know there's a percentage of parents that have kids in school age, and a lot of our staff members live within our district and also have kids in our school. And we haven't had a chance to be with those folks, for many weeks now as we're kind of in summer. So as we looked at it, I think, and I don't know, Paul, if you want to add anything to that, but we think that all pieces are kind of pointing to some of that opportunity being pretty visible.
I have a question to kind of piggyback off that, if it's okay. I was wondering, with the 10% response rate, as Teresa said, we don't really know where that lies, but is that is part of your process to look at the demographics of that response rate and of the voting community and like proxy that in any way? Like, what is the representation of that
So
response rate
as I
versus?
mentioned, we saw a 50% support level when we factored in underrepresentation of parents and younger voters. We think we're at 52% support.
Okay.
We think our margin of error is 2.7%. 95% confidence level means
Okay.
if we do this many times over, 95% of the time, we're going to get those same results plus or minus 2.7%.
Thank you.
I was gonna, when I read through this prior to the meeting and I was looking at the recommendations at the end, on the bottom line, this is more discussion for the board, but I feel like number one, when we reduce the size of the referendum right now, the wording reads 317 million. I'm not sure just how much, like, let's say we cut it by 10%, right? And all of a sudden you're asking for, I'm not good at
287.
math, right? 270,
yeah,
right? Or
something like that.
275, whatever. I don't know if that really makes, they're such large numbers for non-millionaires, in our community, which are at most everyone, right? That it's like, it doesn't, I don't know if that's like the catch to get them to vote yes or no. It's still a huge number to them no matter what. So I feel like leaning into these, if we move forward with putting this on the ballot, leaning into further opportunities to communicate, and number three, refining that messaging, I think would be, it seems to me, a good step forward, rather than considering where we're going to cut, 30 million from our referendum, and then what does that mean for every building and things like that. But
And
those are some of what I was thinking when I was reading through the recommendation.
we had kind of a conversation about this. What day? It's Monday, so I guess it was last week. I personally agree with you because I think, and I don't know that we've talked about this as much on the board as I know we did during our election last year, but like so much of these issues are the result of just Band-Aids. And so I personally feel like at some point, like there is a point at which we make so many cuts that we are just paying for more expensive Band-Aids and not actually providing the sustainable results that that the voting public seemed to have wanted last year. So yeah.
And I'm sorry. I feel like this is a midterm election, so in theory, turnout should be a little bit higher. So to that extent, if those people are coming out to vote anyway for whatever they're voting for, they're going to see the referendum. I think education would benefit us tremendously rather than making any changes. I agree with you, Amy, that cutting out 10% or 15% or whatever isn't going to make a difference. But I do feel that there are going to be voters showing up, maybe not for the referendum, but we need to educate them so that when they are there, when they're voting for whatever, and they see it, they're familiar with it.
There's one, just Paul, can you quick, on that topic, we discussed this for those of you that were part of the task force, right? There was a larger plan and a smaller plan presented, and support was for the larger of the two asks, correct?
Correct.
And
Go
sorry,
ahead.
I thought you were.
No, I
continue,
have.
please.
I'll comment after you explore this concept of downsizing.
Well,
I'm sorry.
for the dollar amount, I just want to kind of take us back to where if we were doing everything, right, that, you know, when we went and we
That's a good
marketed
point.
this to, we asked the public their input and all that stuff, it was like $700 million, right? It was the bill. We brought it down to we already brought it down to basically the bare bones, to as much as we need for the next, you know, in order to do these projects. The other part is, yeah, if we were to drop it 10%, instead of them giving $100 for the next year, they'd get 110, right? Or something like that. So that, and then messaging, it's really just educating, and we really can't, we can't be for or against, you know, in public, you know, and stuff like that, at least in this type of setting, but we can educate.
The board's role when you decide the yes or the no, and we'll go into this in the presentation when we get to information, is really yes or no, is it going on the ballot? That's all that the board is being
Right.
asked to.
Erica, you go first.
You covered my point of, even if we do cut the total amount of the referendum, the amount that people are going to save on their property taxes is going to be negligible.
Right.
I mean, it might be $1 or $2. It's not going to really, I
Yeah,
mean,
it
it's
sounds
$2, but it's not going to, I don't think it's going to sway a voter one way or the other.
So I think my question is a little different. Like I was thinking the amount that we would save if we were to reduce the referendum, but I also wonder in regards to the amount we pay if we don't, like if we continue to just respond to infrastructure needs and do it haphazardly. There's an emergency, obviously we're paying more. I wonder what that dollar amount would be. Have we played around with that? Because I continue to
question.
ask myself
we
what-
wouldn't even be able to do it.
what that would potentially look like over a period of time, specifically just on our taxes, like as it's, so.
That's a great
And
question.
didn't we just have
Erica,
the
and then-
chillers go out? I'm sorry,
Yeah.
the chillers go out at Boulder Hill, so that's an emergency situation right there. I'm sorry.
I would think that if we just started trying to do this through our operating budget, we would wind up having to make more cuts than we are now. Because we're gonna have to pay for boilers going out and air conditioning going out. But the cost of that is gonna become,
It's going to affect our HR.
yeah, it's gonna affect
our human
teachers and
resources,
aides and bus drivers and where the majority of our costs are to begin with.
Shobha Femi, would you like to add anything?
I was just going to say there will be a significant disruption to the educational experience of our kids. Not only will we not be able to find the money that we need to make the significant repairs within our operating budget. Just to give you an example, last year, all we were able to budget was just over $1 million for maintenance and repair last year. And just as mentioned by Ms. Wempton, the HVAC system at Boulder Hill just went out. We've tried, I mean, it's gone way beyond its useful life. We've tried to repair it and to try to keep it working. And it's gotten to a point we can't keep it working anymore. So what we'll have to do, we'll have to engage in emergency repair. When you engage in emergency repair, you don't get a chance to plan. You don't get a chance to get the best pricing possible. You don't get to get plan for the best solution to fix the equipment that you're fixing. You just need to get it running. School is going to start in a few weeks. We need to make sure that we have AC in Boulder Hill. And there will be situation, as we know, for example, this week, we're supposed to have extreme weather. It's supposed to be warmer than usual. What is going to happen if you have an aging HVAC system, aging RTUs, they would not be able to do well with extreme weather. And the same thing goes for the wintertime, when it's extremely cold out. And when we have storms, which we seem to be having a lot of it. So it's going to impact the educational experience. We will have to close more often because we have flooding or we have a HVAC system that doesn't work. So it's not practical based on how we get our resources to run the school district to be able to find money in the operating fund to be able to fix significant capital projects, especially when you have 12 buildings that were built around the same time, that are coming up in 20 years. Operating budgets are not designed to pay for long-term capital needs, especially of 12 buildings.
Yeah, Paul, was there anything else as I know we have another item this evening. I'm sure you'll stay to hear that discussion. So where we bring the actual language for proposal to the board and then get some additional comments. So, but in terms of, as you listened to the board's comments, anything that you think we may need to consider, I think that your point about the simplicity of the language, that this was a very well-planned process in terms of thinking about the timing of where we would look to lower the burden on the resident in this community in order to offset some pretty significant needs. So anything remaining that you think the board should understand?
So I do an exercise with boards where imagine that you're writing a letter to your taxpayers. And the first paragraph reads, "We listened, period." I want you to fill in the second paragraph based on all that you've heard, based on the presentations you've made, public meetings you've had, the survey results, etc. I think it's super important. Again, that, as I mentioned from the beginning, my role is to be a tax advocate and to figure out how do we make sure the voice of the taxpayer is heard, because a lot of them don't have school-age kids and some of them never did, and yet they still have to pay these taxes. So I'm trying to figure out, when you look at the results, you know, it's not up to me. It's up to you, right? To fill in that second paragraph. What does it say? So I'll end with that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Randy? Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. 6.2, our strategic plan update.
Good evening, board. So what you just heard was a part of the culmination of some of the work done this year with our strategic plan. And I'm going to invite our Deputy Superintendent, Dr. Heather Kincaid, to speak to really a summary and a synthesis, along with some other members of our senior leadership team, to talk to the work that really is a result of this board's commitment and support for our district in developing a thoughtful, active, dynamic, and live plan. One of the things we've heard from the board is how's it going? The board throughout the years asks, how's it going with this plan? Is there anything you need to add more? Is there anything that you need to slow down? And I really want to thank the team and all our staff for their support in really preparing this evening's presentation. Dr. Kincaid.
Thank you, Dr. Kogati. In considering what Dr. Kogati just mentioned, we really wanted to provide a review at a high level across year one in preparation for year two. So as we have discussed throughout the year, we decided to tackle 54 different objectives throughout our year one strategic plan. In reviewing across our departments, 19 of our objectives are on track and complete at the end of year one. 30 of them are on track for year two. As you know, we've talked a lot about the building of our strategic plan throughout year one, year two, and year three in terms of planning, implementing, and then reviewing and revising. We do have 5 objectives that are not on track, and you will hear from those senior leaders about why. So throughout this year, focusing first on our first priority of Future Ready, we've heard a lot of presentations from our high schools and our Director of College and Career Readiness about this. As you can see in the structure of the presentation, again, we'll go over high level, but then at the end of our presentation, there is many more details if there's a particular objective that you're interested in diving into. So at the end of year one, all of our year one Future Ready objectives are either complete or on track for year two expansion. We've talked about the implementation of new systems. We've talked about enhancing communication and building out programs throughout the year. In terms of priority 2, our systems of support, some of our highlights from our system support is the start of our MTSS work. So we have put together a district leadership team focusing on our tier 2 and tier 3 interventions. We've had movement, as you've heard about, related to our staffing plans, And we have had movement in professional learning for a comprehensive planning moving into year 2. So Dr. Waller is going to talk a little bit about rightful presence and our intervention.
Alrighty. So what's exciting about this opportunity, though it does read that the rightful presence SPED and education goal is off track, the reason why it is not on track is because we are going to be expanding. So initially the focus was on special education. There's been work done with the comprehensive review. Then there were additional conversations about our multilingual learners and their need to also have those opportunities and access to those extracurricular pieces. And as we came together and continued to reflect, we also wanted to make sure that all of our people can see themselves in the strategic plan as well. And so Dan Artson has done a phenomenal job as the executive director for athletics. And so we wanted to lean into that as well. And so our goal has ultimately shifted to rightful presence, looking at various marginalized identities, looking at various student identities, whether it's gender, ethnicity, all those different pieces. And so it will now be this larger picture within different points of contact, if you will, for special education, for multilingual learners, and continue with that. So we're really excited about how we can even improve as far as our collaboration on that goal as well.
So our third priority was academics. As Dr. Waller just mentioned, our multilingual and special education comprehensive review was completed this year. This is also where we have our curriculum overview and our stages. We had lots of forward progress in our stage 1 with our early childhood and mathematics K-12. They are moving to stage 2, where this coming year they will pilot resources. They will collaborate across K-12 on assessment and scope and sequence and curriculum. So a lot of movement across the board, not only in math, but also science and ELA. So all of our year 1 priorities for our academics are either complete or on track. Our fourth priority was wellness. A lot of also forward progress. You've heard specifically about our crisis response. Our safety audit was complete. We completed a full-scale reunification and not only involving our district, but also multiple municipal organizations in our area. So lots of just system movement in our area of wellness. I would like to, at this time, invite Dr. Mitchell to talk about our staff wellness.
Thank you, Dr. Kincaid. So the Wellness Committee began meeting this spring, and the goal is to work collaboratively with our union partners. We want to make sure that we review previous data that has been collected from staff over the years regarding their perceptions of wellness and what we've offered through benefits and other programs. And that will really help us solidify the direction of the committee. We will determine if we need to develop and share a new survey to solicit new information, thoughts, and feelings regarding wellness. And ultimately, we want to work with the district to effectively support the needs that the staff identifies regarding wellness. That will be, our indicator to know if this particular initiative is effective.
Yes. Our last priority is systems management. We had significant movement in our financial planning, our transportation, our long-range facility. We've talked about our multiple phases we just heard about in terms of our phase 1, 2, and 3 as we prepare for needs of the district. And then at this time, Mr. Obafemi, if you would like to talk about our technology needs assessment.
Thank you, Dr. Kincaid. So initially, when we envisioned the technology plan, we were thinking about doing an RFP and having a third party help focus our effort. And that's because when it comes to our technology staff, we are very, very efficient, i.e. we don't really have any additional bandwidth to be able to do the robust work required for us to do a detailed technology plan. We did an RFP, and the least expensive submission that we got was 6 figures. And we just kind of looked at it, we cracked out, we're like, we don't have that kind of money. So what we've decided to do is bring the work internally, extend the time required to be able to do the work. We will engage the service of an outside party, but on a very, very limited scale. So we're not going anywhere close to 6 figures. So we'll do the work internally. What we will just do, we'll use a third party provider, very, very low amount, to help with the coordination of the technology plan, which is why we didn't start as early as we wanted to start, because the amount of money that was that we received as far as the RFP quote was just, it wasn't in line with what we were thinking about. So we'll do the work internally. We'll use some outside help to support with the coordination, but we will get the work done internally.
Thank you. So looking ahead to year 2, the team would really like to make sure we're capturing and moving forward with the progress started in year 1. Some of the key areas that the team is excited about next steps revolve around our Future Ready, the curriculum development. We will move into the next stage of planning, MTSS, so diving with our union partners into Tier 1, but then providing some systematic approaches to Tier 2 and Tier 3, and then also our professional learning. Another area that we're excited to see some progress is in the planning for the outcomes of our comprehensive review from our multilingual and SPED planning, and then also building on our safety, so standardizing safety across the district, and then finally digging more into the operational efficiencies that Mr. Olufemi has spoken to. So with that, there are areas of improvement to year 2 of our strategic plan. So included in your packet tonight is red line versions. So in that attachment, if I could draw your attention to pages 9 through 13, those are the recommended edits from the team. Really focus on the responsiveness to our system's needs. So we sought the feedback from our buildings, from our work groups, our committees. So what needed to change, be adjusted, really looking at integration across our departments. But then also there are some objectives that we're looking to pause, some that we're looking to move to year 3, and some we're looking to just enhance. So spend some additional time. One example of that is our science for grades 6 through 8. The objective this year was to participate in stage 1 and in stage 2. Based on the feedback of our teachers and our administrators, they need some additional time. So we're looking to stay in stage 2 for our science 6-8, but our high school is ready to move to stage 3. So we really want to be responsive to our teachers and our needs as we look at some potential changes for year 2. So next steps really is the integration of our year 2 objectives into revised work plans. We want to take our updates that we're recommending throughout the strategic plan and then revisit our work plans in the next board retreat. So as we look through slides 17 through 70, I will not go through all of them, but as Dr. Waller, Mr. Obafemi, and Dr. Mitchell shared, we do have for each of our objective additional information for you, not only about the progress of each specific objective, but some of those revisions and notes. So if there's any questions as you review the changes or recommended changes, this would provide some additional information to partner with.
Thank you, Dr. Kincaid. If I may, just as a reminder, the pillars represent really the how of the work, right? And so how we're going to do is and what the focus areas are, and then the priorities are really the content of the what that the community has said. These are the most important things in terms of future ready systems. So again, those priorities really come out of the community. And when I say community, I'm talking about staff, educators, parents, community members, students, really a comprehensive analysis that the board really charged us with. And then the how is really the work. And so I thank you, Dr. Kane. It was really important to bring this to you in a way that was in draft form as we start to think about next year. We have naturally already started to move. The work has been moving, but it's in that spirit of continuous improvement, we wanted to make sure that the board, between now and the next board meeting, had an opportunity to review them and then to really bring back feedback and questions about what do you think what could be strengthened in our process.
When we voted for this strategic plan, one of the things that I mentioned was we want this to be like a living document. And I think this is a good example of what that is, because so often, strategic plans will live on a wall or like a couple bullet points. And so this feels like you're working the plan, which I appreciate. So I wouldn't have expected like everything to be on track. It just felt like, of course, something won't be on track. And so I appreciate the transparency and in the team's review as well. So will we be voting then on the red line? Do we have to re-vote on a strategic plan, or this is just like?
No, these are
just working the
enhancements.
plan?
These are
Got it.
continuous improvement enhancements. I think you're looking more for consensus and agreement. I think somebody said, we want to stop the whole thing. To be frank, sometimes I've seen where not even these continues are brought up, and essentially administrators will enter unilateral decision making about, we're going to go do this over here, we're going to go do that over there, and it never even comes back to the board. And that's how you end up with 3-4 strategic plans in operation at the same time, which is really what we want to avoid.
Was any of this budget driven?
None of the changes are budget driven. There is staffing
Besides-
plans that have been adjusted and things that
We've adjusted.
potentially have moved or shifted, but none of the eliminations are due to budget. Some of the shifting potentially.
Did you want to add anything?
No, just we know resource allocation impacts the work of the strategic plan. And what we're learning to do is that the timing of the implementation may be shifted, delayed because of availability or lack thereof of the immediate resources to get the work done.
I will say that the planning, for example, the placement of the referendum and our budgetary needs around capital improvements was timed as part of the strategic plan for the purpose of reducing the burden to taxpayers. So it's a time. It's not in year 3 or year 5 or year 1 of the strategic plan. It's really timed in that way to avoid any risk of increasing the burden on.
All right. Thank you. Unless. Okay.
Just want to thank you and the team, Dr.
And then we're at 7.1, our superintendent's report. Dr. Delgatti.
All right, I just have some brief comments tonight. Just want to really thank the board for its investment and the flexibility to have this event out in the atrium. I want to thank the team for bringing everyone together. It was really wonderful to see the students. It feels kind of can feel a little dry in the summer, so it was exciting to see our students and to feel the fervor. And school is just 5 weeks away. It's hard to believe that. This evening, you've heard that breathe sigh. Not yet. We want to just this evening. You've heard some already the feedback from our community around the referendum. I think it's important to really invest time, and I've been conveying just the importance of knowledge and of understanding what the facts are, not what your posture is towards the vote, but really your understanding of the facts related to this effort. And just again, we've had to really think about our proactive planning in this regard. And also there are emergencies like the Children's of Boulder Hill that come up as a result of the the need for the timing around the age of these assets that we have in our buildings. Reminder for our community that you're listening, immunizations, physicals are, we want to make sure everybody's up to date on those. I want to invite you to check out our SD308 website. It's got a lot of information as you're thinking about prepping for the year. If you get stuck and you can't find something, there are lots of tools on there as well for clicking a button here or there for help. I can't find something, right? So just right on the website, it can direct you. If you have a question you run into, please reach out and look at that. We're excited. Getting ahead of that can really help, especially as it relates to registration. Kindergartner, you've got a rising kindergarten. If you haven't yet, it is not too late. Jump in and get it going. We are ready and to help support the bridge. We've had a lot. We've had some really, and you'll hear about this later once school starts, but significant change in our registration for, especially as we think about dual language learners and opportunities for registering. In the month of November, we will honor Native American History Month, but I did want to recognize that, tonight we honor the founding of our nation 250 years ago, but I also think that in November we'll spend more time thinking about the land that we stand on and recognizing the history of our indigenous people in this area and recognizing that their history is a part of our history. Many of them were forcibly removed. And I think it's important as we think about history that we see the whole picture of history and not just one slice of it. And so in November, we'll revisit that, but I wanted to just say that I consider that an important part of our history that cannot be forgotten. Let that be one that really prepares us for even better future 250 years and going forward. So I just want to recognize and honor those who came before us here as well. And that is really what makes our nation such a great land of tremendous opportunity for all of us here. And so with that, I'll turn it over to the board for the next item.
Okay. 8.1 public comment. Okay. On behalf of the Board of Education, I would like to thank the public for attending tonight's meeting. We value the feedback we receive from our members of the public and encourage everyone to take an active interest in their public school system. Individuals interested in speaking to the board this evening are asked to have completed a comment card and presented it to the secretary to the board. Any members of the public who have not yet turned in their public comment card to the secretary of the board are asked to do so at this time. When the secretary calls your name, I ask that you come to the microphone, state your name for the public record, and provide your feedback. Please note that comments are limited to 5 minutes per person. The board does not participate in discussion during public comment. Comments should address the Board of Education as a whole, not be directed to an individual board member, audience, or staff member. Follow-up to your questions or concerns may be addressed by administration through the contact information provided on the comment card. Thank you.
Katie Hayden?
Hello, congratulations on your achievements this evening. So it was nice to attend your 250 year awards ceremony. I would like to get started off with just giving you guys a gentle nudge as I sent out an email about our August 4th Lunch and Learn. I'd really love to have SD308 involved. We're inviting East and West Aurora. It's a part of our new initiative this year. We started scholarships last year for the school year for SD308 in Kane and Kendall County, but we need students to actually funnel through the whole aspect of trades. So not just a scholarship, but if we could start early in junior high and even 5th grade, we could start having freshmen go to the union halls, and there's 7 to 8 trades to at least get started where we're affiliated. That's the trowel trades, the ADC 1 of Illinois, the bricklayers and allied craft workers. So we want to take that opportunity to fundraise, so then maybe either quarterly or semi-annually, we could do field trips of 20 students to go and experience the whole trade for a day. Imagine doing that on a quarterly basis. Imagine doing that for 20 students in 3 different school districts, how we would be able to impact skilled gaps for the construction industry. I think we had a great presentation earlier about talking about the importance of holding white collar and blue collar jobs at equitable levels of employment for students' future. That's why CTE is so important, and having those two connected helps maintain our infrastructure for the future. That's what we need. So I just hope to hear back from you, and I going to share a flyer with you tonight, and I'd love for you guys to come if you're interested. Katie with RHK, thank you.
Thank you. There
No, just the one.
no further comments today. Moving to 9.1, board member comments. Does anybody? Randy, would you like to start? I'm just going around.
Oh,
You don't, you
And
don't
no
have to.
comment.
No, I don't. I have a couple. Two things. First of all, I want to thank everyone. I want to thank Teresa and her staff who put together who put together the team to play softball this past Saturday as part of the intergovernmental round robin. So it was basically people from the village. Okay, there were public works people. When Ryan Kaufman wasn't out there. And also from the police department and also from the park district. Unfortunately, the fire department couldn't make it. We had a perfect record. We graciously handed over victories to all three teams in the interest of good sportsmanship. No, and the other rumor is the other three teams also play in leagues, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
it was a little different experience.
As opposed to our team that was put together as best as possible in July.
that met each other about 5 minutes before the first
Right.
time
We
flew,
had teachers, we had admin, we had family members, we had friends and
It was
neighbors of
amazing.
family
And one
members.
game was close, Mary
It
Jo.
was.
We
It
did.
was so close.
It was.
It was so
One
close.
inning
It
away.
got a little bit wider, but it was so close.
There may have been a slaughter rule involved in the other two, but we won't go into that either.
It's gonna help
But
recruitment for next year, you guys.
and
I told you,
Oh,
my
I'm-
husband's in.
See?
and congratulations to Garrett for pitching all three games.
Yes.
Our principal
It's a little
Garrett Fair pitched all three games. Actually did a pretty good job.
I heard administrator sliding into third. Is this?
Sliding.
Yes, there was one, and he didn't have cleats on, and he may have dropped to the ground about 5 feet away from the base, but I digress. But anyway,
The
actually,
dedication was there.
yes,
for
yes,
sure. The commitment,
he brushed it off and
Yeah.
kept on going.
literally.
Yes. But anyway, it was a good time, and thank you for everyone that participated and everyone who showed up. The only other thing I want to mention, since you mentioned it's 5 weeks before school starts, on behalf of Community Cares, our annual Start Strong project is on August 8th, and that is it's a Saturday. That is when we are giving away shoes and backpacks and school supplies for kids that are in need. You do have to pre-file in order to be on the list for that. There has been some information going out. If you've not seen it already, please be on the lookout. Also, to the extent that you're on the other, that you're more fortunate, if you would like to sponsor any of that, we would welcome whatever you have. So either contact me, or if you're familiar with Robin Vickers, contact her directly. But anyway, August 8th is the date. And that's it for me.
I just wanted to shout out, say thank you to Bryn and anyone else who helped migrate the entire board meeting from board docs to diligent. I know it was not seamless, but it looks seamless right now. So thank you. Well done.
Even though it drops off the last name on the attendance list.
You're just
Who said that? No.
It's my ex-husband's fault. I couldn't have her up there.
Thank you, Bryn.
Ravel?
No, nothing.
Last month, I got to go to the groundbreaking ceremony for the Waterlink project, which is going to bring Lake Michigan water out to this area. I learned about the St. Peter's sandstone in college 30 years ago, so this is not a new idea that we're going to run out of water. And if you've been on the east side of Oswego East, you know the construction has started, so hopefully we'll be drinking Lake Michigan water soon. So we actually got to taste it at the ceremony, so it was nice.
Yeah, I wasn't planning on saying anything, but for that, I just it was a good example of intergovernmental cooperation. The reason that you're able to use Wolf's Crossing Road is because we had this discussion before. That was going to be shut down for quite a while and at a large cost to the taxpayer. So not just in time, but in money. So we saved everybody money too.
Well, at Harvey was gonna be shut down.
Well, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I remember there was going to be lots of,
Yeah.
they were going to have to go underneath. Well, they were going to have to go.
They're still going underneath.
Yeah, they're going to have to do some other.
But
Yeah.
They were gonna
You
rip
know
up
more of the
Harvey
details.
Road.
This is up your alley
a
for
long
sure.
time.
I volunteer for next year. I thought I'd diminish the team. You know, like,
Doesn't sound like
Yeah.
it.
I might get a single here or there. You know, I haven't swung a bat
More
in
than
years,
welcome.
but I love it. So, all right, well, we'll move to 10.1. Approve consent agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
I make a motion to approve all items under consent, including 10.1 minutes from the Board of Education meeting on June 8th, 2026, open and closed sessions. 10.2 to acknowledge the FOIA requests received by the district. 10.3 to approve field trips for overnight and or more than 200 miles. 10.4 to approve the Boundless Education Initiative grant in the amount of $200,000. 10.5 to approve arbitrage rebate payments to the Internal Revenue Service for the Series 2022 General Obligation Limited Tax School Bonds as discussed and presented.
Second.
Any discussion?
I just wanted to say congrats to the team on the Boundless Educator Grant. It's very cool to help our residency program keep doing the work that it's been doing. So congrats.
Yeah, just a comment.
Yes, actually, we for this past year we were awarded 75,000, and then Reagan Sondergrath wrote and worked with our NCTR partners, and was able to then be funded for 200,000. So we're hoping, Amy, as you mentioned, to be able to continue our current residencies, because as we know, the teacher vacancy grant currently, while still being discussed at the state, has ended the 3-year pilot. So we're hopeful that that will come through, but we were very excited to increase our BEI grant.
And we were selected to be a national site for them to come visit in the spring, in the fall. We were selected to be a national site for them to come see how our teacher residency was set up to support long-term investments around staffing. As you know, that is a huge priority. So that's a big deal. We're going to have people from all over the country coming to see our schools and to see how we've set up our residency program.
And I just had I noticed that there were quite a few robo FOIA requests. We're being inundated with that. So
How can you tell if it's just by your?
We didn't-
It has a robotic voice.
no, it was at something, and then they're asking the same questions over and over again, separate FOIAs, and so basically,
Well,
Mary Jo, I think, talked about
the
this not that
attorney
long
will-
ago, and it's
The attorney
coming
will
to
let us
fruition.
know. There've been quite a few of those that essentially, because when we get some of these are so voluminous, the type of requests that they are, we're able to determine that this was developed through an AI tool or it was developed through a variety of methods that are not essentially in line with what the purpose of it is. And so our attorney's been very, very closely. Dr. Kincaid. you want to-
Yes, so we have, as you can see on quite a few of the FOIA response, have now moved to, because of the belief that it was submitted not necessarily by a person, requesting proof that there is a person, so that requires then a call-in response. So we have moved in that direction, as Dr. Kogati mentioned, in partnership with our legal team for quite a few of the what appears to be AI-generated FOIA requests.
Annoying. Any other discussion? No. Okay, Brenda.
Ms. C? Aye. Dr. Polak?
Aye.
Ms. Robinson? Aye. Dr. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. Saron?
Aye.
Ms. Wenmouth?
Aye.
Dr. Murillo?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Move to 11.1, financial information.
So for the month of May, which is what the financial information that we presented in this package is, the revenue as well as the expenditures are on track. There's nothing out of the ordinary. If you look at the charts that we provided, It shows the historical spend as well as historical revenue. We're on track. There's no outlier there. The only thing that a couple of things I'd like to point out is that, as you can see, inflation is actually still rising. The 12-month inflation from April of last year till April of this year, which is what the CPI information that we share with you on, we're looking at 3.8 CPI rate, which is pretty high. And the only other thing that I wanted to point out is that we will get this financial information doesn't reflect our first installment of the 2025 tax levy, which was paid in June, and it'll be reflected at the next meeting's information. So we get the first installment in June, then we get the second one in September. And what we've been trying to do, we've been working with our investment partner to try to come out with an investment plan to get the most for the first installment that we're getting, and also to start planning for the best way to invest the second installment that we're going to get in September, so as to make sure that we get the most return for the money, while always making sure that we invest conservatively.
Of course. Yeah. Of course. Appreciate that. Anything else? Any questions?
Has there been any decisions or movement on fee collect or impact on fee collection?
We've actually been working on that, and we've actually also engaged the service of a firm with specialty in collection of fees, and we've been providing them information as required and working closely to try to make sure that we optimize that. On our own, we've also been sending out letter reminders to our parents, letting them know that we need for them to do their part and pay the fees that are owed to the district. So we've been approaching on two prongs.
Have you seen, has that had any impact, a positive impact in getting some fees paid, or it's just kind of laying flat?
Nothing significant. We're working on it. And I think where we'll probably see the significance when school starts, because we know our parents, when school is out, people just got to check out from school. They're on summer breaks and things like that.
I think the number one thing that's emerged is really the number of steps required in the fee collection process. And so how do we accelerate that, right? How do we make it as efficient as when you're shopping for anything, right? So you get that notice. And so we're really working on, the consultant is working with Amanda very closely to identify ways to make them much more efficient. And then the second part of that is that once we have that data well organized, we can, for those that are really delinquent, we can go to collection agencies and ensure that we're holding people accountable. That's one of the things that we heard. Not that we want to be overly punitive. However, one of the things that we've heard consistently is that, everybody has to pay their part. And for family members or for community members who spent many years and done their part, they feel like it's an issue of justice, that everybody should play their part in ensuring that we're paying those fees, regardless of what the threat of it is. If we're all part of a community, we can all pitch in for the support.
So
go ahead. Brandon.
So 2 questions. Did we hire a consultant for this particular deliverable? Because you just said consultant that's working on this particular deliverable.
Somebody's been brought in to do some work directly for the team, yes.
And how much are we paying this particular consultant to do this work?
I think it's nominal. It's a preliminary assessment right now, from what I understand from the contract.
And it's going to be,
evaluation.
and it's going to be on a contingency basis, right? So they get paid what they bring in.
So where are we finding this money from? I'm just curious, because I know we're restricted with.
It's going to be on a
finance
contingency.
fees.
So the money is going to come from the revenue they're able to generate. These are accounts that we've tried everything we can to be able to monetize. We've not been successful in it. So we're hoping with a fresh set of strategies, ideas, we'll get the money that we have been able to get and pay a percentage of it. So it's kind of like found money that we have not been able to convert yet.
But typically there's a flat rate, or there is a contingency. I know most agreements, right, from a business
Right.
side. So what would be that flat rate? So let's just say, because I want to say, well, like 5 million, right? And out of that 5 million, let's just say they were only able to get 100,000 out of that 5 million. What would be that flat rate that consultant would receive?
We have not finalized the agreement yet. What we are trying to do, we are providing the preliminary information that the vendors asked for to help determine how best they can support us. So when we finalize that agreement, we'll bring it to the board for information and approval.
And then my second question is in regards to the collection, because I know that's also a cost too. What does that look like at this point? Because again, since we're restricted with finance.
That's a
I'm
great
curious.
question. We can bring that for the
Yeah.
next board meeting, the details of that.
Okay.
Yeah, we've
Because I'm sure
talked
the
about
community
it,
is
but
curious about that too.
we haven't implemented any of that yet. So, yeah. Thank
We
you.
can bring a more a deeper outline.
Any other questions? All right. 11.2, intergovernmental agreement.
So we just wanted to build upon our IGAs that we have been bringing over the last few board meetings. Today, we are going to discuss our IGA with the Aurora Police Department, the reciprocal reporting agreement with the Oswego Police Department, the SRO agreement with the Oswego Police Department. Our remaining IGA with the Plainfield Police Department will come for information and action in August. So the first one, our Aurora Police Department, is scheduled just for information today. And the major change to this one is really predicated by requirements of the state of Illinois, and it has included information regarding body-worn cameras. So that's the only significant change in our IGA with APD. Moving to our two IGAs with OPD, which are both scheduled for action today. I'd like to start with the one referring to our reciprocal reporting. So in that, we have seen throughout updated languages, or updated language due to changes in both the Illinois School Code and the Illinois School Student Records Act. So it does also add body-worn cameras related to the training, the use, and the notification. So in the reciprocal reporting, there's changes to language around process and around timely notification. So our last IGA about SRO really provides some refinement related to the selection of the SRO. So there's some additional indicators of what we would be looking at in order to select the SRO. It also includes the evaluation of the SRO program. So really working with OPD to evaluate the program. Is it really doing what it's intended to do related to positive interaction, participation of the SRO in collaboration, problem solving, prevention, and de-escalation? And then is the program truly focused on our mission, purpose, and goals? So that evaluation of the program is now in our IGA. It also does include the requirement of participation of our SRO in emergency management, crisis response, and threat assessment, which we've seen a significant change over the last year or two. Similar to reciprocal reporting, it does also include updated language based on changes of Illinois School Code and the Illinois School Student Records Act. As in every 2 years, we also have updates based on salary, and the hourly rate is included in our IGA. And then similar to APD's IGA, it includes information about body-worn camera. And then one thing that I would like to point out towards the end on page 12 in that section about what an SRO shall not. As you've heard presented both by OPD and our Student Services Department, in SY25, we started the work related to fines, fees, tickets, and citations, especially around municipal code violations, We tackled vaping here in SD308. Now, as we know, there's been updates to Illinois School Code. So that is now officially in our IGA, that the SRO shall not issue a fine, fee, ticket, or citation to a student as a disciplinary consequence for municipal code violations. So, but that is something that we started even prior to the changes to Illinois School Code. So again, today, just for information, the IGA for our Aurora Police Department, and then in our action section, both of our OPD, the reciprocal reporting, and the SRO agreement is on the docket for action. Any questions?
Is the hourly rate that we pay for the police officers, is that set mutually between us, or is that something that is like a standard?
That is a standard per their contract that is set by the village.
Any other questions? I know this was a lot of back and forth.
Yes, there has been
So,
significant back and forth.
How would you characterize the discussions?
I think it's been proactive to really make sure that the language reflects what we are looking for in terms of changes. I think the things that we tried to highlight are benefits to our program and our relationship with Oswego Police Department, and really rooted in the changes that they have tried to make, but we really want to see in our schools, focus on relationship building and putting our students first.
Yeah.
So
And ensuring communication back to families appropriately.
No, I'm glad that we were able to come to.
Yeah, I appreciate the evaluation
agreement.
of the program and in the intergovernmental agreement piece, and some of the pieces put in about selection of school resource officers. We're still paying. I think we pay our resource officers more than we pay many of our teachers, and so that always strikes me as not. I don't know. Doesn't strike me positively all the time. I've said my piece often around, resource officers in schools, and I appreciate our police department and the things that they do, but just so the board knows, no surprises, I'll likely be voting no for this intergovernmental agreement tonight. So, thank you.
We'll say that we're going to evaluate. That's in the agreement now. So a lot of your concerns are
See what the
are
I'd be interested.
are heard.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I think the discussions have been helpful. So,
I
thank
agree.
you.
Any other questions? No? Okay. 11.3, our capital bond proposal.
Okay, 3 minutes. Thank you. Duly noted. Board, this evening, we're really, I'm excited and honored to bring this recommendation forward for the board's, for information this evening, and then for vote in August. Really, 3 years ago, this board launched really a process to think about the priorities, and we had a CMSI audit. And that audit called for attention for facilities assessment, but we had no plan to stand behind it. Repairs happen when systems fail. Very often, these were reactive approaches. The board said no more. So tonight's ballot language review is on the other side of a gargantuan amount of work completed over the last 3 years. This question was not built around a dollar figure. This was built around 4 deliberate phases. The facility conditions assessment, which involved school leaders, students, and educational alignment review, which involved community members, parents, teachers, a long-range facility plan that was built from that was adopted by this board. Now the funding question that flows from it. Whatever our community decides, if the board approves this in November, this board can stand behind how this question tonight was built. And the assessment first, alignment second, planning third, and truly funding last. This was really a huge effort to really move us around putting our money where our mouth was in terms of the investment of human capital. So I want to invite my colleagues to speak to it a little bit more this evening. If you want to go to the next slide.
So, Dr. Kincaid, do you have the?
Oh, clicker.
Thank you. So we've actually already revisited a few changes to the ballot question. So the finalized version that we will get, our final feedback and working with our consultant group to you will be of essence in this. It's just whether or not the emphasis has changed. So the primary difference of what you're seeing on the screen right now compared to what Mr. Hanley presented in regards to the survey was really the removal of some of those projects around like the athletic stuff, calling out specifically the CTE. We do want to note that there's no substantial changes to the plan as a whole in any sort of recommendation. It's just that since the language is long and somewhat complicated, and it does give us the opportunity, since it talks a little bit here about the not limited to. So these are the things that are included, and really putting the emphasis around the large bulk majority of the project. Dr. Kincaid, could you go one forward? So that, again, we want to visit this. And again, Mr. Hanley, I've explained some of this already, but the infrastructure makes up 79% of the funding plan as it is presented at this time. So again, that is the things that holds extremely well with our public. It's the things that our facility assessment told us were the items that were at, or in many cases beyond end of life, and are in need of being addressed. Again, the proposal on the table would be, around that 10-year plan. So it's not just the things that are today. This would really be setting us up to be able to begin to address the things that were within that first 10-year phase of that long-range facility plan. And then the next largest piece of the pie here is the facility site improvements. That's kind of a hodgepodge of a bunch of things. So that does include opportunities for us to upgrade science labs or to look at some of the CTE spaces, but this is really where you got very, very site specific. For example, the servery area at Boulder Hill isn't wide enough to accommodate both an adult and a student going through that servery line. So that's one area that would be addressed specifically for Boulder Hill. So when we talk about the language of the bond, the reason you're not seeing like every single thing laid out there is because in that portion of it, there's a lot of very specific things, individual needs to each building. To help further explain those, that's really kind of the next phase of our communications efforts, is to really understand what it means for each specific school, for staff to understand what it would mean for the building that they work in, and for parents to understand what it means for their child and their experience at their individual building. So we'll be partnering with White & Company to work on that and help to break that piece of it down a little bit more. And that other portion that's there is safety and security. This is really where we talked about like the secured visitor entrances, some of the fire protection stuff, access control panels, those types of things, which again, we saw significant community support behind. So really, again, the bulk majority, you already had this discussion ahead of time, but really there's not a lot of additional, fluff, if you will, to the project at hand, and some of the considerations to take, under for you as you determine. Again, what I said earlier, and it's important to restate here, is the board is not voting in favor or against support of a referendum. The board is simply bringing a yes/no vote at our next board meeting to whether or not this is going to be presented to the community for them to voice either way on November's ballot. So again, we just really want to revisit what that language means and why. So yes, if we could go to the last one. So that is exactly what you're going to be looking at on that August meeting, is whether or not to place it. It is not, again, for or against. We wanted to just revisit some very common misconceptions around the referendum. Paul mentioned it took 30 seconds to kind of explain even what it means to say that the tax rate goes down while you're still investing this $317 million. So this is a difficult one to try to give like the 10-second spiel on and people, to believe what's being said. But we do want to just revisit some of those. So again, the funds have to be utilized in this case for the specific purposes listed in the proposal. That's why you see in that bond language the specifics around safety, security, the infrastructure, those things that are listed on there. that cannot be utilized for everyday operational expenses, salaries, benefits, curriculum, supplies, things like that. If approved, again, this funding request would be allocated specifically to those purposes. This question was asked at both of our town halls that we've hosted so far. Is it common for this type of bond request to come forward? We wanted to bring that here this evening, and the answer was yes. Mr. Obafemi touched on it just a little bit, but our every year's operating budget certainly can't absorb the large one-time costs associated with these huge facility investments. So we can't, we are responding in an emergency manner as things become unusable. For example, the Boulder Hill cooling that we are experiencing right now. But there certainly is not an opportunity within what is allocated in the general operating budget to accommodate projects of this nature that you're seeing in this funding request. So this is common. It was answered that way in the town hall. Another way to look at it is that rather than a long-term asset that, for example, is something that might be invested that's got a 20 or a 30-year lifespan to it, that being able to spread that expense across the bond then makes it more, even with what that expense and the term of life around that expense, as opposed to trying to pay for something all at one time and not dividing and spreading that use, again, for the life of that investment. And then the question, we talked about it a little bit here, what happens if it doesn't pass? We went through at it a little bit, that the needs aren't going to go away. Certainly it will be, but the district doesn't go away. So we certainly will have to learn how to address those. But we know that it would be on this as needed basis. So much like we're operating in at this moment in time, we wait until something breaks, the building isn't usable. We use that emergency, as Mr. O'Flynn said, that emergency way of hurrying up and where can we get the part the quickest and who can get in here to get it fixed the quickest. And then we have that disruption of use of the building in the meantime, as opposed to that planned RFP process where we can really time the work around when the building is going to be available, as well as seek out bids for work that, would fall competitively across the spectrum, as opposed to what we can get quickly. So, again, we know it's the world we live in today. It's the world we've lived in for the last several years. Over the past year, we've had countless times where we've had to close a building or move areas of the building because of flooding, or because of heat failures or cooling failures. And Andres and his team have really done a great job of helping to continue to throw those Band-Aids up. And that would be the life that we move forward. And we would anticipate that those would continue to get, more, we'd have them more frequently.
And it's really not a good way to run an enterprise, especially an enterprise this size, whereby we're driven by crisis instead of being able to have a plan like we do now. The long-range facility planning, setting funding aside, making a determination as to what we are going to do when, hiring a project manager, and just doing things systematically like you would do in a real enterprise. And for folks who say, why can't we use the operating fund to pay for this? If you look at most businesses, when they engage in capital projects, they normally don't use revenue set aside from the business. They take out debt, just like we're talking about now. Commercial paper, they may issue, they can, any other kind of debt to fund the development of the project. And as the enterprise makes money, they pay back. And that's essentially what we are saying here. We're looking for a planned, systematic way of addressing our facility needs, capital project needs that over time we've neglected because of lack of resources. I think the time is right for us to do it now. We've done everything within our power by funding some of this repairs in our operating budget. There's not enough money in operating budget to deal with this. And are we willing to sacrifice the educational experience of our kids? Not being able to plan for repairs that we need to make, and not being able to do things the way it should be done, instead of doing the whack-a-mole, which is essentially what we're doing now. Something break, we reach out to a firm and say, hey, we need for you to fix this. School starts in about 4 weeks. And we don't normally get the best price possible that time because the vendor realized you're in a bind. Quote you the most that I can quote you because I know you don't have any choices. And it's not really a good way for us to run this district.
Yeah, I look at it, you know, we're budgeting 2-3 million, you know, per year. Suddenly, if we were to say, oh, okay, we're going to do $31 million a year, we're going to increase our capital, you know, out of our operating funds, $28 million a year. I mean, that is, I mean, we might as well have 50 kids in a class. I'm just saying, we would have to be a Band-Aid district. I mean, we are competing for talent, we're competing for our teachers, we're competing for our TAs and our bus drivers, and we, you know, if we were not to pay them a, you know, a decent salary, we just simply wouldn't have them. So I mean, it would be a Band-Aid. I mean, I don't even know that really, I mean, unless anybody else kind of disagrees with me, but all right. Sorry. Raphael, I think you were about to chime in more.
That's it.
Okay.
So we just, again, the board would be, we'll be seeing this in August. We will send out the official language, you know, and working with all of our partners around making sure all the legalities and everything are really summed up in that language. The most important part is taking the essence back from that public opinion information that we just heard earlier this evening and making sure that that bond request matches with what the taxpayers responded were the priorities or the things that really shouldn't be the priorities as we develop that language. And once that language is set, once this plan is set and that is brought forward to the voters, it's important to know that there is no option to, you know, abandon that and revert the money to salaries, for example. And that's one of the big misconceptions in the community. And that's really, really important for us to hit home with this educational campaign.
Yeah. It's a legal contract between us and the community. We cannot, that is voted on by the taxpayer. We can't go back and change that. It's not possible. So we can't use it to pay for salary. We can't use it to buy books. We can only use it on capital projects. It's just that simple.
There was a term that was used at the last board meeting where if it is approved, those funds won't be just released all at once. It will be scheduled in a way that's related to the development of the appropriate project. So those funds will be used directly with that. It won't sit in a bank. There's some rumors out there, they're just some other storyline about how those funds will be spent. It's not, it's a very calculated, organized process that is aligned with the actual spending that's committed to.
If you actually look at the agenda, one of the things that the board just voted for, arbitrage rebate, and that was from a 2022 tax bond that was sold. And what that is designed to do is when we sell a non-taxable bond, the IRS doesn't want us to then put the money in the bank and earn interest on it. If we do that, we have to pay arbitrage on it. So that is one legal way to make sure that doesn't happen, because we will get penalized for it. If we just issue bonds and we sold all of it and we just put it in the bank just so we can earn interest, that wouldn't wash. We have to, the IRS wants that interest back within a certain timeline. So we have a timeline for every bonds that we issue that we have to spend it all in 18 months. If we don't, whatever interest that we earn on that non-taxable bond goes back to the IRS. Yeah. So just to make clear. And so we have 5 years to issue all the bonds. So we will need to actually plan out what we are going to do before we start selling. So we have to sell the bond in tranches, not all at once, just to sell it and just put the money in the bank. It doesn't work that way. The IRS doesn't want you to do that. The IRS wants its money. If you sell a non-taxable bond, you got to spend it for the purpose that it's designed for within 18 months of selling that bond, or you will be paying the penalty on it.
It's also important to point out, I think, in the when you look at the bond series over time, the way we're able to say that dollar amount is coming down for taxpayers, you know, in that first year and then a few years again later is because as the debt gets lowered to a certain percent, then there's a certain amount of the bonds that get layered on top of that, and that continues. Is that correct, Mr. Obafemi?
Yes.
Well, and then
Yes, it is.
as homes are built and as businesses grow, then that would keep going down as well. So the bond side.
Right.
And we also know for a fact the reason people buy homes is because of schools. Good schools lead to homes with solid property value. And I think I mentioned this before. We periodically meet with home builders in the area. And one of the things that they tell us unfailingly is whenever they have a development that is being contemplated, they tell potential buyers that the development will be served by 308. They have absolutely no problem selling those development out. And that is because of the great education that we offer in this district. In order for us to keep that up, we have to keep investing in our infrastructure. We can't let them degrade.
Yeah, one of the things that was pointed out earlier is that we have a high percentage of families, you know, with kids in the district. So bears out, I guess. I'm looking at this ballot question. This is kind of the thing that we're going to be voting on is the language to the ballot. To me, this captures literally 88% of the expenses that we would be using it on. Yeah.
Right.
So,
The only thing that's not in here, we are considering is going into a little bit more detail around the safety and security improvements to add some language around the secured entrances and access control and fire protection. Just people don't understand what safety security means, to give a couple examples there.
right.
But as you mentioned, it's the bulk majority without us going into a 7-page essay of each and
Right.
every thing at each building. With 22 buildings, the needs are very unique at each of them, which is why there's some of it that's not spelled to that final, but they all fall within those buckets that are listed in the ballot question.
Anybody with, I know I talked a lot, sorry. Anybody? Okay. All right. We'll be voting on that next meeting. All right, 12.1, action item. Approval of bills for payment. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to authorize the payment of bills in the amount of $5,774,034.74 as presented.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Saron?
Aye.
Miss C?
Aye.
Dr. Martin?
Aye.
Miss Wenmouth?
Aye.
Dr. Murillo?
Aye.
Dr. Polak?
Aye.
Miss Robinson?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Action item 12.2, approval of board policy section 6, instruction 6135, accelerated placement program. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve Board Policy Section 6, Instructions 6:135 Accelerated Placement Program as discussed and presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay.
Dr. Polak?
Aye.
Miss Robinson?
Aye.
Miss Wenmouth?
Aye.
Dr. Martin?
Aye.
Dr. Murillo?
Aye.
Miss C?
Aye.
Mr. Saron?
Aye, motion passes 7-0. Action item 12.3, approval of resolution delegating certain employment authority to the superintendent for a defined summer period. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the resolution delegating certain employment authority to the superintendent for a defined summer period.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay.
Dr. Murillo?
Aye.
Miss Robinson?
I abstain.
Dr. Martin?
Aye.
Miss Wenmouth?
Aye.
Mr. Saron?
Aye.
Dr. Polak?
Aye.
Miss C?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0, 6 ayes, 0 nays, and 1 abstention. Action item 12.4, approval of waste and recycling RFP. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the award of the Waste and Recycling Services RFP to Groot Industries.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. Oh.
Compliment the RFP process as usual. Thank you.
Dr. Martin,
Aye.
Miss Wenmouth,
Aye.
Mr. Saron,
Aye.
Miss Robinson,
Aye.
Dr. Pollock,
Aye.
Miss C,
Aye.
Dr. Mario.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. 12.5 action item, approval of district fees, school year 26-27. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the district fees for school year 26-27 as discussed and presented.
Second.
Any discussion?
Miss C,
Aye.
Miss Robinson,
Aye.
Mr. Saron,
Aye.
Dr. Mario,
Aye.
Miss Wenmouth,
Aye.
Dr. Pollock,
Aye.
Dr. Martin.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Action item 12.6, approval of Oswego High School retaining wall RFP. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the award to Cox Landscaping for the Oswego High School retaining wall replacement project.
Second.
Any discussion?
Dr. Mario,
Aye.
Miss Wenmouth,
Aye.
Dr. Martin,
Aye.
Mr. Saron,
Aye.
Miss Robinson,
Aye.
Dr. Pollock,
Aye.
Miss C.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Action item 12.7, approval of intergovernmental agreements for municipalities. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the intergovernmental agreements for municipalities as discussed and presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Any further discussion? Okay.
Dr. Pollock,
Aye.
Miss Robinson,
Aye.
Miss Wenmouth,
Aye.
Mr. Saron,
Aye.
Dr. Mario,
No.
Miss C,
Aye.
Dr. Martin.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1. Action item 12.8, approval of ESL curriculum resources proposal. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the ESL curriculum resources proposal as discussed and presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All right.
Miss Wenmouth,
Aye.
Miss C,
Aye.
Mr. Saron,
Aye.
Miss Robinson,
I abstain.
Dr. Pollock,
Aye.
Dr. Mario,
Aye.
Dr. Martin.
Aye.
Motion passes 6 ayes, 0 nays, and 1 abstention. Action item 12.9, approval of personnel report. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the personnel report as discussed and presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay.
Miss C,
Aye.
Dr. Martin,
Aye.
Dr. Pollock,
Aye.
Dr. Mario,
Aye.
Miss Robinson,
Aye.
Mr. Saron,
Aye.
Miss-
Oops, sorry.
and Miss Wenmouth.
I just made it last longer, and I was trying to get through it quick. There you go.
Say now.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 7-0. Action item, or item 13.1, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Sure. Now you listen to me. I make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.